This day started like any other.
What do you get when you cross point and click games, puzzle games, some RPG elements, nostalgic vibes, and hand-drawn animation? You get BROK The InvestiGator. The first new game of this month that I decided to pick up. I had very little info going into it, and outside of a trailer and some brief gameplay, I didn't have any strong expectations one way or the other. So let's see if BROK will be a beloved treat, or if this will be a gator I will regret wrestling with. And one quick thing to clarify, I thought this was a brand new game when I started, but it actually came out last August on Steam. But by the time I found out, I had pretty much finished the review already, so I might as well. The first thing that you will notice about this game, it has a fully hand-drawn art style, and it has a very retro, nostalgic vibe to it, which is instantly noticeable from the floppy disk uses a continue icon, or the options having almost like an old-school desktop look to it. The beauty of this design really shows through with some of the backgrounds more than anything, and the whole game is a treat to look at whether you're in the sewers, out in the open streets, or inside a high-tech looking place. You play as BROK the InvestiGator, the alligator investigator, with partial memory loss in a futuristic cyberpunk world where animals have replaced humans. He suffers from nightmares about his wife dying in a fire, who he doesn't remember dying that way, and on top of that, blaming him for her death. In the day he will do his private investigating business, at night he earns some extra money in illegal virtual reality gambling fights. Living in a small apartment with Graf, the son of your ex-wife, the story begins with you getting a call from a stranger named Sin, a new recruit to the police force who has lost his crippling gun and wants you to find it to avoid any consequences. Naturally, things don't go quite so simple, and this case will kick off the story for the rest of the game. This world also has a very deep class divide between slummers, the lower class, and drummers, the higher class, who live in this giant dome, which is something you notice a lot more of in the other part of the game where you play as Graf. There will be times where you can switch between them any time, and can switch back and forth to complete one or the other at your own time. And you'll get a taste of his high school life with his best friend Ott, who is a half-breed outcast being half otter, half warthog. And if there's one question this very much raises, if crossbreeding is a thing in this world, what else can they do? Since the story is such a big part of a game like this, I won't go into it, but all I'll say is it very quickly was able to draw me in, made me curious about where it would go, and I knew I would want to follow these characters until the very end. And if I was to describe it in one word, I think it would have to be charming. This game just oozes personality and charm, and it doesn't always have to be one note either. I feel like a lot of people might look at this game and expect it to be a bit of a joke, but it can be really touching sometimes. It can be funny, it can be cute, and it's not afraid to take a while to just relax and have a nice moment too.
You and your mom, after we met, we used to go here every evening. Both of us had busy lives, but this was our highlight each day.
I really grew to love some of these characters, and more so the relationships between them. And on that note, let's talk about the characters. Obviously, with a big focus on story and investigating, you're going to spend a lot of time with them. You have BROK, of course, who is the main character for the game, and he's a former boxer turned detective with a great mix of brains and brawn. BROK overall is extremely likeable. He's charismatic, friendly, and has a true heart of gold in a lot of ways, and just a sense of honour to him. He won't hesitate to throw his life on the line to help somebody in need. You've Griff, who is BROK's adopted son after his mother died. They live in their tiny apartment, and he's definitely a bit of an angry teenager at times, but he's very bright, scientific-minded, and caring. And even if a bit of a strained relationship between them, you can really tell he admires and appreciates BROK for what he does for him, even if he doesn't always show it. There's Shay, who is BROK's genius, tech-savvy childhood friend, and she is probably my favourite. She seems to be working on a lot of shit in her shop, and she can give some pretty great laughs.
Now tell me, Are you feeling angry or stressed lately?
Are you insane?
Well, yeah.
She's a true kooky bird. There's plenty of others too, some that appear for longer, some for little cameos. But I really do think the cast is a lot of fun and really shows off some really fun personality types. I won't go into them more just because, you know, with games like this, some characters have changes and twists and turns go on, so I don't really want to talk about them, but so I'll just leave it at that. The gameplay is kind of split up into a few different categories. Outside of battle, at its core, BROK The InvestiGator is a point and click game. You can do the typical point and click style, you can move with the analog and click things you're in front of, you can hover the cursor around with the right stick and then click on stuff that way, and you can press left and right in the D-pad just to switch between all the objects in case you don't know what you're looking for. You will toggle between them one by one and then press X and BROK will go over to them. If you're stuck, you can also hold on the square button that will show you every object in the room that you can interact with. And there is a lot to interact with. You can spend a lot of time just looking at things, just to see reactions, get information and all that. You will go from room to room with many things to do, so if you're into lots of lore and stuff like that, you will be here a while. Sometimes you'll be up to like 10 or 20 things just to look at here and to click on. Like most point and click games, you will find items that you can pick up and then use them on the appropriate spot to solve puzzles and progress, or even just to hand to people and see how they react. Which, even in my limited experience with these games, I know for a lot of people is a ton of the fun.
Do you want this? It's pretty cool.
Don't you have a client waiting for you?
Hey, take a look at...
Later.
Throughout this game, you can make your way past obstacles, sometimes by thinking and finding solutions, or alternatively, you can just punch your way through. Not always, but sometimes, and it's up to you. You will have multiple pathways depending on what items you have obtained or what you want to do. Sometimes they're really obvious, sometimes not. And sometimes you'll even have multiple responses when you're talking to people for varying story outcomes or cutscenes. You can choose to be a nice gator, or you can be angry, you can fight, and you will interact with people with certain topics to asking them about, so showing them items, listening to your own thoughts. There's even some unique dialogue you can get from experimenting with the environment.
What are you, 3 years old?
I'm just testing the resistance of my bed.
Or by hitting people.
I hate you!
And thankfully, since you can save at any time and loading is incredibly quick, it's quick and easy to test these things out if you just want to see the consequences without committing. And sometimes your investigations will end with an interrogation, where you will combine pieces of evidence to get to the bottom of things. Not all evidence will be needed, and you might have to search for more. And like most games with things like this, these are a highlight of the game and a really satisfying conclusion to close things out. And without any spoilers, of course, the second one of these in Chapter 4 was genuinely one of my favourite few hours of gaming in my entire life. I was sucked in, I was invested, I was hooked, I couldn't turn away. It's what's going to give this game an extra point at the end, because it was up there with like Danganronpa class trials, which for me are the highlights of a game I already absolutely love. This was genuinely phenomenal. In your menu you can see things like typical stuff like your money, but you can also call people, check text messages, combine your items in your inventory, or to check hints. But you can also turn off hints completely if you want to in the options like I did. It also lets you see your inventory, which can be used to try combining things or to examine them. Progress on your current objectives, side quests, collectibles and trophies. You can see your player stats like experience and move tutorials. And extras to see things like concept art, which can include really cool things like artist notes and poses. There's character info, soundtracks, and something I think is really amazing, fan art. Submitted by actual people, and it looks like more might be added soon. This is such a cool thing that I really wish more games did. I have to give some serious props for this, and I just can't praise it enough. So if anyone has any fan art they want to send in, feel free. So once again, amazing feature. More games need to do this stuff. You can also save at any time, like I said, which is really cool if anything goes wrong, because the autosave is really great here. It's really consistent, it's really quick, And there's also fun little mini games and puzzles in the world too. Like a treasure hunt game where you use 10 of your currency for each go of a claw-like mini game that will tell you how far away the treasure is with each push, and you have 6 chances. And that will help you to get some treasures and cool little things as well. And outside of all these regular locations, you'll have a little overworld to navigate in between, kind of like a level select, but slightly more interactable. And then if you press the triangle button, you can switch into action mode, which will bring us to the other major aspect of this game, the beat 'em up mechanics. If you've ever played a beat 'em up in your life, this will be very familiar to you. You'll throw punches, you'll block, you'll dodge, you'll jump, you'll throw items, you'll have stronger moves, things like double tapping the dash button to do a more powerful dash attack. Like I said, if you've played a few beat 'em ups at all, this will probably come really easy to you. As somebody who was playing a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge this year, I knew pretty instantly what kind of actions would likely cause new moves and what I could do to experiment. And for one thing I must say, BROK might have my absolute favourite dodging animation I have ever seen in any game. As you beat your way through enemies, you will gain experience to level up, which allows you to increase your health, strength or special attack power, and some money will drop too, and sometimes even some items, which will heal, boost your strength and more, and these can also be found outside of battle and stored for future fights. And while you can't interact with things while in combat mode like you can when you're doing the point and click style gameplay, you can switch with one button and it's really instant. You might punch something by mistake every once in a while, but mostly it's perfectly fine. The combat is admittedly a little bit stiff and dodging doesn't feel great, but overall it's satisfying. You can really feel the impact of your punches, and there's enough going on that it doesn't feel like a chore when it does happen. And there are some cool touches to it, like throwing weapons that can bounce from one enemy to another to hit him, or enemies hurting each other if you position things well. And as I mentioned, there's VR fights at night, and these play a little bit more like a traditional beat 'em up where you'll travel from left to right, fighting through hordes of enemies, with some spectators too, to see some background characters of many animal types, for better or for worse. And sometimes there will be boss fights too. And while bosses themselves aren't anything special or fascinating, the fights themselves are truly intense struggles. It's what a boss fight should be. A fun one-on-one battle against somebody more powerful than all of the other enemies combined. I usually love talking about music in reviews, but there's not a ton to say here. It's serviceable, it's good background music, but nothing really stands out much. Like I said, it's good background music, just don't expect anything great. There's a couple of tracks I really enjoyed though. Like BROK's apartment theme has a nice chill background track.
I still can't make any sense of these nightmares. It didn't happen that way. I wasn't there.
And some outside music during a cutscene I liked quite a bit too.
You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it on people like me.
I want to, and it's my decision as well.
But that's pretty much it. So, overall, BROK the InvestiGator was a nice treat. I'm glad I tried it out, and even more glad I went in mostly blind. I think it'd be great to see more of this guy in the future, and I'm definitely interested in having a look at some more of Cowcat's games too. Especially the nice hand-drawn ones. They're a rare experience these days, so I always have my eye out. The final score for BROK the InvestiGator is a very solid 8 out of 10. I really was going to give it a 7, but with certain things that really just went above and beyond for me, I couldn't. Most of the game is really good. Some of the game is just top tier. I genuinely think this might be one of the most underrated games I've ever played. Only time will tell, but I do think everyone should try this out. Especially if you're a fan of mystery games or point and click style. This could be one of the best I've ever played in that regard. And I can't wait to go back to this more, because between small little things and big story updates that I found from going back to record some things, doing some little things can really change outcomes in big and small ways. And I can't imagine 2 playthroughs of this game being even close to the same. whether it be for the tiny choices or huge story elements. And the combat, while fine, that's just it. It's fine. Maybe if you absolutely love beat 'em ups, it might rate a little bit higher, but I just liked them okay. It was never a genre that sucked me in. And just to make sure we're on the same page here, I use the standard of 5 being average. 5 is middle ground. But I definitely hope to see more of BROK someday. I hope he will return, and I really think he has high potential to be one of my favourite characters of this year. I think this whole world has a lot of potential and creativity. It really feels like passion went into this, and in the end of the day, that's what I want more than anything. People making stuff because they want to, because they love what they put out. That's what I ask for more than anything else. I highly recommend this game. It wasn't full AAA price or anything. I got for like €25 on the PS4 and it's 20 on Steam. And if you do get it and it doesn't grab you right away, try giving it a couple hours. It just might surprise you. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know if you pick it up, or if you did last year when it actually came out. But better late than never, especially for a game that deserves the love. Thank you once again for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. It apparently helps. See you for the next one.
Every day,
Going somewhere, Crack?
we fight to survive. But at the end of the road,
You've saved me. You're my hero.
there's hope.
Raise your eyes to the sky.